So we're going to go into some of these basic arguments, and I'm going to show you first a very simple 1-minute video from a wonderful YouTube channel called Taboo Conspiracy. I believe it's Taboo Conspiracy 3 now. If you just type in Taboo Conspiracy, but we're going to start with a very, very simple 1-minute video where, trigonometrically speaking, you know that you don't live on a ball. So we'll start with this. This is 60 seconds. Flat Earth fact number 1, 8 inches per mile squared.
The globe model, the surface of all standing. According to the globe model, the surface of all standing water must have a certain degree of convexity. Based on the alleged globe circumference of about 25,000 miles, the Earth must curve away from you at 8 inches per mile squared. The formula is simple and accurate over all visible distances and has been proven by engineering software. At just 10 miles, there should be a measurable curvature drop of 67 feet, 20 miles, 267 feet, 60 miles, 2,400 feet. To calculate what amount should be hidden behind the alleged globe bulge, you can use an online calculator like this one. We can prove that this curvature does not exist. For example, in this video, I filmed the opposite shore 21.03 miles away. You can see both the laser source and its reflection on the water. That laser in the opposite shore should have been between 218 to 223 feet below the globe horizon. No curvature is present. At a different lake in freezing conditions, the source of this distant laser should have been 168 feet below the curvature. No curvature is present. If the Earth were a globe with a curvature drop roughly equal to
Okay, I kind of wish that it wouldn't autoplay the next video, but I'm kind of not really good at YouTube, so I need to figure out, is there any way to make it not do that? Anyway, there's a next one that I'm going to show you. Now, I need you to understand just how enormous 8 inches per mile squared is, okay? It's not 8 inches per mile, okay? It's 8 inches times the square of the distance. And this, now, we're going to start with the fact that some of you are going to say, well, that's not the formula for a circle, which would be what the arc around a sphere would be. A great circle is the largest circle that can be traced around a sphere, okay? So we're going to call any, just theoretically, if you live on a sphere that you're staring at any distance, you're staring over a great circle. And that great circle is going to have a radius of 3,959 English statute miles, okay? So when you actually use the formula for a circle, it's a trigonometric expression that explains exactly how much curvature drop there's going to be. For simplicity, over short distances, the first non-zero term of a Taylor series expansion of that trigonometric function gives you accuracy to within 1% up to 300 miles. I don't know if those numbers are exactly correct, but they're correct enough. And if you want to be even more accurate, you can use the second non-zero term of that Taylor series to account for differences over extremely long distances. The fact is that 8 inches per mile squared is extremely accurate for hundreds of miles, and I will debate that with literally any human being in the world. Now, over 10 miles, you would have to have 66.67 feet of curvature drop. Okay? Over 100 miles, that is 6,000, over a mile of curvature drop. Okay? Never, ever is that curvature detectable. Let's watch it. Let's watch. I'll show you.
If the Earth were a globe with a curvature drop roughly equal to 8 inches per mile squared, and the surface of the Earth and its atmosphere allegedly rotated at approximately 1,000 miles per hour at the equator, as claimed by the globe model, you'd assume those claims would be vital to NASA and the military for modeling and building aircraft. Instead, you'll see through declassified documents that government agencies and their contractors repeatedly assumed a flat and stationary Earth. For example, this NASA document assumes a flat, non-rotating Earth. Georgia Institute of Technology, on behalf of NASA, the model used is a flat, non-rotating Earth. Technical memo from the NASA Langley Research Center, flat, non-rotating Earth. NASA Technical Memorandum, flat, non-rotating Earth. NASA publication on the derivation and definition of a linear aircraft model. flat, non-rotating Earth, and flat, non-rotating Earth. NASA contractor, flat, non-rotating Earth, and flat Earth assumptions. NASA Ames Research Center, non-rotating flat Earth. Army Research Laboratory, flat Earth. Army Research Laboratory, propagation of electromagnetic fields over a flat Earth. Army Research Laboratory, a flat Earth approximation provides the best estimate. NASA technical paper, stationary atmosphere over a flat, non-rotating Earth. NASA technical memo, a non-rotating Earth. MIT Department of Aeronautics and Astronautics, flat Earth, flat Earth. NASA memo, flat, non-rotating Earth. NASA contractor report, assumption based on the Earth is flat and non-rotating. NASA technical memo, flat, non-rotating Earth. NASA technical paper, stationary atmosphere and flat, non-rotating Earth assumptions. NASA technical note, flat, non-rotating Earth. NASA Langley Research Center, flat, non-rotating Earth. Army Research Laboratory, these equations assume a flat Earth. Even the Soviets made their assumptions based on a flat Earth. If the Earth were a ball and rotated at 1,000 miles per hour, you obviously would not see the repeated engineering assumptions that the Earth is flat and stationary.
Okay. Countless documents ask us to refer to a flat, non-rotating Earth. Why? Because that's what we observe. So now I'll just kind of move on to the next thing, all right? Because one thing that you can now obviously test, just really, hang on a second. Is this D. Brandon 63, you're ruining how many right now? What's going on here? Second non-zero term. I just want to make sure that this, okay. I don't know. So out of the comments in here, I have to be very, very careful with how angry I get, because it's very difficult to interpret what people are saying, who's referring to whom, because let's face it, the Rumble chat app is terrible. And I have no idea who's referring to whom. And so I don't know what's going on in the chat. I would hope that you have, if you have any questions, you would address it to me in one way or another. The fact is that I've just realized that ever since I came out as a flat earther, there were some people in my audience who just lost their shit. I mean, real bad lost their shit. And I'm disappointed beyond words at that. And I was always and one of the things that I was so deeply grateful for in the Badlands community is the fact that it was like, oh, you're a flat earther? Okay, cool. What's next? I'm a ball earther myself. And there are plenty of people in my life who are ball earthers. You think my mother is a flat earther? No chance. But what you do know now, beyond any doubt, is that if you do live on a sphere of radius 3,959 English statute miles, 24,901 English statute miles about the equator, then any distance to horizon by a corollary of that 8 inches per mile squared can be no more than 1.225 miles times the square root of the observer's height in feet. And you can go out on a calm day on a bit of water and you can see for 10 miles, you can see for 20, you can see for 30 under the right circumstances. Of course, you have to have a clear day. It has to be dry. But you can see far enough that you know that the cosmology you've been told is false. Okay, so the next thing I'd like to talk about is rotation. So we're told that the Earth is a sphere. And then we're told that that sphere rotates at a speed of approximately 1,041 miles per hour at the equator. So let me just ask you a real quick question. Do you have any evidence that that rotation exists? So bear with me. Sorry. I'm sorry. I'm not so great at YouTube. I've stopped using it. Where the fuck is it? There we go. All right, now I'm going to hit pause. All right, I hit pause. I actually hit backwards. All right, so I'm going to share this one. Please watch it. It's very important Planes landing on a 1,000 mile per hour alleged speed, 1,038 miles per hour. Let us begin, shall we? 3 minutes and 58 seconds.
Okay, we're told the Earth rotates at 15 degrees per hour, one rotation per day. If a plane were taking off from the North Pole at a distance of 1 mile from the geographic North Pole or literal axis of rotation of Earth, that would be a 6.28 mile circumference. That circumference would cover 6.28 miles in one day, or just about a quarter of a mile per hour. If a plane takes off from that runway and heads south towards the equator, it must, by mathematical fact, by physics fact, somehow accelerate its angular momentum that as it was taking off from the North Pole was only just about a quarter of a mile per hour, must somehow, when it's going to land at the equator, have accelerated over 1,037 miles per hour of angular momentum. It has never been proven physically that planes do this. There has never been an instrumentation, reading, or measurement provided to prove that this is what airplanes do when flying from north to south towards the equator. And vice versa. A plane taking off from the equator is carrying 1,037 miles per hour angular lateral momentum and must somehow lose over 1,000 miles per hour of that angular momentum in order for it to land safely at the North Pole that is again only moving at a quarter of a mile per hour. This proves the Earth is stationary, and as many NASA and other government documents proclaim, when doing flight tests, they assume a flat, stationary plane. Globe proponents will tell you this is just because it's an easier way to test things without making it complicated, and so the pilots don't have to do all the difficult math. I would submit to you, because there has never again been any physical proof of their mathematical claims of rotation and conservation of momentum, much less acceleration or deceleration of angular momentum that these planes carry, that it is more likely that the Earth is just flat and stationary, and that's why these government documents state this. Until someone can provide mechanical measurement of airplanes either gaining 1,000 miles per hour of angular momentum or losing it going from the equator to the North Pole 1,000 miles an hour of angular momentum, this is proof the Earth is a stationary level plane, just as the government's own documents state. Thank you for your time.
So I would ask you, oh, by the way, real quick, super chat from Matt Trump. Thank you, Patrick. As a die-hard baller, I completely support the flat earthers in their search for truth and condemn those who try to win arguments by ridicule and humiliation. Thank you for that, Matthew Trump. I really do appreciate that affirmation, because we ballers and flat earthers, we flat earthers and you ballers can totally coexist. And we don't have to challenge each other to debates. We can totally agree to disagree. What I don't think we should do is go around accusing each other of being CIA commie infiltrators if we happen to disagree about cosmology. that's just me. Okay, so let's continue. Now, let's move on topics, because one of the things that I think proved that the Earth is a non-rotating plane. Hey, by the way, somebody said we don't live on a planet. Depends on what you mean by planet. So you could say that planet means ball, and then definitely we don't live on a planet. But you could also say that planet is just a word for small plane, a planette. And then you could say, well, it's definitely a plane. It's a plane that is hemmed in by something, and it's a little bitty. They're telling you in the word what it is, but that's an etymology question. But anyway, let's start talking about Felix Baumgartner. Those of you who are ball earthers might not recognize the name Felix Baumgartner, but I certainly do. And if you might recall, I don't know, like 10 years ago or something, they sent a dude up in a Red Bull, like, hot air balloon. And they brought him up to a height of 128,000 feet, and he jumped out. And he was wearing what appears to be a spacesuit. So let us take a look at this video entitled Felix Baumgartner Proved the Earth is Stationary. And boy, howdy did he. Let's take a look at this. All right.
On October 14th, 2012, Felix Baumgartner officially reached an altitude of over 128,000 feet. His ascension took approximately 2.5 hours. His launch site was here, and his landing site was here. He landed 44 miles east of his launch site. According to the globe model, at the equator, the ground is allegedly rotating at 1,037 miles per hour. At the 33rd latitude, where Felix was located, the Earth is supposedly rotating at 867 miles per hour. So, if the ground was rotating at 867 miles per hour, then Felix should have landed roughly 2,000 miles to the west in the Pacific Ocean. Obviously, he didn't land in the Pacific Ocean. He actually landed 44 miles east of his launch site. That's the same direction as the Earth's supposed rotation, and absolutely the wrong direction. The alleged rotation of the Earth did not affect Felix's 2.5-hour ascent to that extreme altitude one iota. The globe propagandists want you to believe that the rotation of the ground somehow transferred all of its motion to the air above it, as though air constitutes a solid block stuck to the ground. They also must claim even the thinner upper layers of the atmosphere miraculously speed up to keep up with the ground below, as though the air can be connected to the ground like spokes on a bicycle wheel. The globe claim is patently absurd. In reality, the ground cannot effectively transfer its motion to air. Moreover, the layer of air close to the surface cannot then transfer its motion to the air above it, and so forth. If the Earth did spin as claimed by the globe model, this would result in a 1,000 mile per hour westerly wind, making life impossible. According to Dr. Carl Schofer, but we know of no body the parts of which have much less connection with each other than is the case with the air. The air layer next to the Earth, really dragged along by the communicated motion, would not be able to communicate its motion to the layers above it, for the simple reason that it stands in no connection with them. These upper layers must therefore remain in their place, or, which would signify the same thing, would apparently flow westward with the same rapidity with which the Earth is said to rotate to the east. Now, since the point on the equator, if the Earth rotates on its axis in a day, must move eastward at the rate of 1,250 feet a second, the air would similarly move 1,250 feet westward in a second, which would more than 10 times surpass the velocity of the most fearful hurricane. We cannot perceive the rotation of the Earth in any way. We cannot demonstrate it. There are no air currents which we can justly regard as, or even supposed to be, consequences of this rotation. These facts ought to be proof enough against the existence of the rotation of the Earth. Must it not appear almost absurd in us, preoccupied by what they have taught us in school, to accept a theory of the rotation of the Earth which neither is nor can be proven? Must we not wonder at the readiness of the learned of nearly the entire world, from the time of Copernicus and Kepler, to accept the conception of the rotation of the Earth, and then search afterwards now for nearly 3.5 centuries for arguments to maintain it, but of course without being able to find them.
So just to sum up what Ben is saying in that video, the argument that we are spinning and that we can just take a hot air balloon and hover there, okay? Just think about that. You are told that the ground beneath your feet at the equator is rotating because it's the surface of a rotating water ball. You are told that it is rotating 15 degrees every hour, which works out to approximately 1,040 miles per hour. You should be able to hop up in a hot air balloon and simply wait for a destination to arrive beneath your feet. Does that make sense? Now, the argument in response to that is always, no, no, no. The atmosphere is moving with the rotation of the Earth and carrying all objects along with it. Just think about what that would have to mean. That would have to mean that the rotation of a solid object is somehow able to cause the concurrent or concomitant rotation of exactly the same amount of gas going all the way up to the so-called Kármán line where so-called space begins. All of that would have to rotate in lockstep with it. Is there any evidence that the rotation of a solid object could ever cause such a phenomenon to occur? And also just take a step back and just think to yourself, you've been told so many lies your entire life. Told so many lies. And when you walk outside of your door, you feel a stationary Earth. You look out, you see a flat, stationary Earth. You see the sun moving above your head. And you are told so many things that you have absolutely no evidence of. And the only evidence that you're given is the space program, which can be shown over and over and over again to be fraudulent. I know a lot of you are never going to agree, but am I completely insane for asking these questions? Am I a commie infiltrator for asking simple questions about the central narrative? Autumn Loving says, water always finds its level. Well, except on a spinning water ball, where it always has to have 8 inches per mile squared of convexity, which somehow we're never able to find. So those are the first two arguments. The first argument being, you can't find the curvature, ever. The second argument being, you can't find any evidence of angular rotation. Now here's the third argument. All gas pressure must have containment. And I don't even think I need to show you a video for this one. This one goes 100% with pure logic. Guys, you have a very, very simple gas law, PV equals nRT, and it describes the behavior of gases under temperature, a certain temperature, a certain pressure, a certain volume. Pressure, temperature, and volume. These things vary with each other. But volume has to be stable. If you vary volume, the other variables vary, the other values vary. But there's a problem if you don't have a certain perfect prerequisite for every bit of gas pressure you ever have. A prerequisite for any gas pressure at all is a container. You can't have gas pressure without a container. So when somebody asks me, how do you know that space, a perfect vacuum, past the Kármán line? How do you know that space isn't a vacuum up there? Here's how I know. Because I have all this air to breathe. If I lived right next to a 10 to the minus 17 torr vacuum that filled up the volume of space, according to retards like Neil deGrasse Tyson, 10 to the 80th cubic meters, then all the air that we have here would, by the second law of thermodynamics, have to fill that space. How much space? The space of space. 10 to the 80th cubic meters. There are those of you who know what that number means. That's 1 with 80 zeros, cubic meters. That's almost a Google fucking cubic meters, guys. You think that this tiny little water ball is able to have gas completely enveloped around it right next to the vacuum of space. Now, what are you going to say in response to that? I know what you're going to say. You're going to say the magic super word. The magic super word. Matthew Trump says, you are not a commie infiltrator. Anyone who says so is a jerk. Thank you so much, Matthew Trump. I do appreciate not being a commie infiltrator. So anyway, gravity. What is gravity? Well, I'm going to start first by Googling a guy that you may have heard of named Isaac Newton. Known fingo hypotheses. I feign no hypotheses. All right, here we go. I'm going to find the exact quote. I have to find, it's under General Scholium. Please bear with me for one moment. Known fingo hypothesis, gravity, just to make sure that this is the quote. Hang on. I apologize for this. See, if I would prepare, boy, I suck. Let me look up the word gravity. I want the exact quotation from Newton about his supposition of gravity. And if I can't find it, then I'm just going to have to summarize it. Okay, Newton and Leibniz, gravity. Okay, so I can't find the quotation immediately. There are so many perfectly wonderful flat earthers out there who are angry at me right now for not having that quotation memorized. But here's what I will say about what Newton said back during his own era. In his own work, he surmised or supposed or ruminated even that the Earth produces an attractive force because of its mass. And he did say later that this concept of gravity is not even subject to experimental philosophy, and he feigns no hypothesis as to what its nature is. To sum up, what Newton said was, look, gravity is not something that experimental philosophy can test for. And I don't have any kind of hypothesis that I could ever possibly subject to experimentation to test that hypothesis. I feign no hypothesis. I can make no experiment. So don't put this shit on me. That's what he was basically saying. And so what do you think? They named it. They named it Newtonian gravity. That's how these fuckers operate. I'll give you another example. Tycho Brahe, the famous astronomer, when the heliocentric model was being propagated or proposed, etc. RLC 4458, $20. Love you, Patrick. Love you back, RLC. Hang on. D. Brandon 63. God bless you. Oh, live your life as an exclamation rather than an exclamation. Hang on. I really would love the known fingo hypotheses. Anyway, if anybody can find the known fingo hypotheses thing and just translate it from the Latin, that would be fantastic. But I'm not going to worry about it right now. You can't see me for $21. Line of sight signals, gigahertz, prove it's flat. We build towers and the white dish up there is pointed level to horizon and the signals can travel over 1,000 miles. This means it's flat. Okay, very good point. Can't see me for 20. I want to make sure everybody knows that this phenomenon that you're describing is why the magnetosphere, no, not the magnetosphere, the ionosphere was imagined into existence. So when it was shown that ultra high frequency shit could be sent over thousands of miles, they said, well, that's not possible because we require line of sight. And then, of course, over 1,000 miles using the 8 inches per mile squared, and then using the second term of that Taylor series, you would realize that there's like sick amounts of curvature that would block line of sight. So what do they say in response? They say, well, there is an ionosphere that reflects that signal, and that's why we're able to get it. Now, pure fantasy. It's just made up in order to fit the model that has been imagined into existence. And here's another funny thing. A lot of people will say that the ionosphere proves that the Earth is a globe, which is a rather embarrassing affirming the consequent fallacy. Affirming the consequent fallacy is something that I would like a lot of you to learn more about if you don't already know about it. The affirming the consequent fallacy tells us if A, then B, B, therefore A. So I'll put it this way. If I eat 10 burgers, I will be full. I am full, therefore I ate 10 burgers. So that's not necessarily true. I might have eaten something else to get full. I might have taken some kind of appetite suppressant. There are other reasons why you might not be hungry. Or, affirming the consequent is how a lot of globe earthers form their argument. So if the Earth is a ball, then signals would reflect over the ionosphere, causing them to be able to get there. People are able to get signals, therefore the Earth is a ball with an ionosphere. I hope that makes sense. There are things that are testable that prove the Earth is flat. So anyway, let's go back to flat Earth conspiracy because he's so good at this. So Felix Baumgartner, back to, did I even do Felix Baumgartner? I didn't. Wait a minute, or did I? Shit, I didn't even do Felix Baumgartner. All right, y'all have to see this. Felix Baumgartner got up to 128,000 feet, and then he jumped. I'm 99% certain you haven't seen this yet. And if have I already shown this one? Ooh, D82 says, why does a dense object fall faster than a less dense object? That's actually not related to this. D. Brandon 63 says, gravity explains the motions of the planets, but it cannot explain what sets the planets in motion. Gravity does not explain the motions of the planets, in my opinion. But that's the problem with calling them the planets is all we know about them is that they are lights in the sky that behave in a certain way. When you say that those lights in the sky are giant gas balls in a vacuum, you're just making that up. For example, astronomers, what are they actually doing? Astronomers are merely looking up into the sky using telescopes and telling stories about that. That's not science. There is no way to subject anything that's up there to the scientific method. And D82, why does a dense object fall faster than a less dense object? Well, it's not always true. And second of all, wind resistance would probably be the answer to that. Okay, let's look at this next thingamabob. This is a 3-minute, 18-second. One quick thing. Did I show you the Felix Baumgartner one? I'm going to go ahead and play this.
October 14th, 2012, Felix Baumgartner officially reached an altitude of over 128,000 feet. His ascension took approximately 2.5 hours. His launch site was here, and his landing site was here. He landed 44 miles east of his launch site. According to the globe model, at the equator, the ground is allegedly rotating at 1,037 miles per hour. At the 33rd latitude, where Felix was located, the Earth is supposedly rotating at 867 miles per hour. So, if the ground was rotating at 867 miles per hour, then Felix should have landed roughly 2,000 miles to the west in the Pacific Ocean. Obviously, he didn't land in the Pacific Ocean. He actually landed 44 miles east of his launch site. That's the same direction as the Earth's supposed rotation, and absolutely the wrong direction. The alleged rotation of the Earth did not affect Felix's 2.5-hour ascent to that extreme altitude 1 iota. The globe propagandists want you to believe that the rotation...
Okay, it's clear I already showed you this one, and I apologize for that. There are German bombing beams. That's the one I should have showed you. Okay, so we're going to talk about German bombing beams and how they prove that the Earth is not a curved ball. Hold for processing. There we go.
Before the start of World War II, German scientists developed a blind landing navigation system for aircraft. Essentially, aircraft tuned in to a certain frequency would know the location of the center of the runway by using a radio beacon as a guide. After World War II broke out, German military scientists soon realized that the same technology could enable German bombers to locate specific targets in England even in the darkest of nights. This secret system was called Knickebein. In short, the radio beam from a single transmitter would guide the German bombers on a line towards the target, but one beam could not tell the bomber when they were over the target. A second transmitter was set up so its beam crossed over the target, indicating when the airplanes should drop the bombs. British intelligence, led by R.V. Jones, slowly became aware that such bombing beams may have existed and presented the information to Frederick Lindemann, Winston Churchill's leading science advisor. But Lindemann and others said such a targeting system would be impossible because the supposed curvature of the Earth would block the high-frequency beams because VHF waves do not even allegedly bend around the curvature of the Earth.
Dr. Jones took the message to Professor Lindemann, his old tutor and now scientific advisor to Winston Churchill, and tried to persuade him of the serious threat posed by the Knickerbein beams. But Lindemann was not convinced, pointing out that at the high frequencies necessary for an accurate beam, the curvature of the Earth would prevent its being directed against targets in Britain.
Lindemann was conceptually and mathematically right. VHF beams would require a direct line of sight with the German bombers, and England was simply too far away. The first of these Knickerbein transmitters was set up on Stolberg Hill near Denmark. Another transmitter was set up at Kleve in western Germany. Stolberg Hill was located 443 miles away from Derby, England. The hill was only 142 feet high, and the transmitter was 152 feet high for a combined height of 294 feet. Based on the globe map, the Earth's curvature would hide 118,425 feet. The other transmitter was in Kleve. It only has an elevation of 39 feet combined with a 100-foot tower. 139-foot height with a distance of 331 miles means that the curvature of the Earth would hide 66,722 feet. In other words, under the globe, a German bomber would need to be higher than 118,425 feet to be within the line of sight of the Knickerbein system. But the maximum cruising altitude of a German bomber was only 19,200 feet. Without question, it was impossible under the globe for those German bombers to be within line of sight of the Knickerbein towers. But Knickerbein did work, and English lives were lost as Churchill's scientific advisors couldn't believe in the VHF Knickerbein system when the Earth's curvature should have made it impossible. Very high frequency requires a direct line of sight. Wikipedia confirms the same as it reads, as the transmitters were more or less in line of sight to high-altitude bombers. This article here confirms it as well. But as I just showed, Wikipedia lied, as German bombers would have been nearly 100,000 feet below the globe's geometric horizon and certainly not within line of sight of the towers. There you have it. Only under the flat Earth model could the Knickerbein system work, and the globe propagandists have no counter-argument but to lie and claim that the bombers were somehow in line of sight of the Knickerbein towers when that would have been mathematically impossible.
That's a huge deal, guys. When we are shown that line of sight stuff, which cannot possibly get there, and mathematicians of the time said it is impossible for this sighting system to reach from one place to the next, and they discovered that it does, they invent new things as ways of explaining it. That's not scientific. That's taking something that may or may not be true and reorganizing your reality to suit it. And you'll notice that a lot of globe earthers, in order to hang on to this, in my opinion, dead theory or dead story, just in the end, just keep making up newer and newer lies in order to support it. Like D. Brandon 63, like the ionosphere, a fiction created to make the Earth a ball. I'll give you another fiction. There's this thing called Albert Einstein's theory of relativity. It is purely a fiction invented for one purpose: to reinterpret the results of the Michelson-Morley experiment. And what did the Michelson-Morley experiment do? Well, it proved that the Earth was stationary. And when they proved that the Earth was stationary with their null result in the Michelson-Morley experiment, Albert Einstein came along to explain that due to relativity, The motion of the Earth would not be detectable by any test. You'll never be able to find it, but it's there. How do you know? We just do. And that really has been the story of the 20th century. We just do, accept the central narrative. This crazy guy who liked to have sex with his cousins with the wild hair, he's the greatest genius in the world. He was the Neil deGrasse Tyson of his time, Albert Einstein. So I haven't really hit too much on the Earth, why the sky is not a vacuum. And I think a lot of you want to know more about gravity. So I'm going to get into that just a little bit. You see, even Newton said, don't put this gravity hypothesis on me because I feign no hypothesis. And then a crazy Freemason, a crazy rich-ass Freemason named Cavendish came along. And he built an experiment designed to find out what the mass of the Earth is. So Henry Cavendish came along and he set up a bunch of balls on strings, big lead balls on strings in a shed on torsion bars, and then using a telescope because he didn't want to interfere with their motion with his own personal gravity. He wanted to observe if the balls got closer together. And then he claimed in his results that he proved that gravity was real and that massive objects attract other massive objects. And that was accepted as real forever. The problem is there is no verifiable reproduction of the Cavendish experiment in human history. The notion that the reason that denser objects fall to the ground through the less dense air, the reason that they do that is because the Earth is a supermassive ball with its own mystical force of gravity. That is literally something that was just made up. I don't know how else to put it. But even if you suppose that gravity is real and it's what causes my icebreakers to hit the floor, what I do know is that gas molecules don't fall to the ground ever. We don't have to sweep up oxygen from the floor. That's not a thing. And by the way, things that go down also go back up. If there was an inexorable force pulling all things toward the ground, how on earth would butterflies be able to avoid being overcome by the force of gravity? The way that things orient themselves in this density gradient system is much more easily explained by denser things go down, lighter things go up. Otherwise, my helium balloon would not have magical anti-gravity properties. But just think of this. We do know, Dolinik says, explain Foucault's pendulum. Foucault's pendulum is a pendulum that you set in motion, and sometimes it wobbles, and therefore the Earth is moving. Remember how fast the Earth has to be moving? 1,000 miles per hour at the equator. And Foucault's pendulum repeatedly showed that they knock the domino over in one direction sometimes and another direction in the other. It shows no uniform motion in one direction. Foucault's pendulum is a parlor trick by a guy named Foucault. Anyway, next. On the gravity stuff, do note, there's no gravity acting upon gases. Gases move in all directions in defiance of so-called gravity. So when people say gravity is what's holding them to the Earth, that's just a supposition in order to help support their belief system. When in reality, you can only have gas pressure with the existence of some form of containment. And some might even call that container the firmament. Hey, Dolinik, I haven't seen you in a gajillion years, bro. And that's the very first time I've ever had to explain Foucault's pendulum. Hey, guys, if you ever look up Foucault's pendulum, it's just kind of a parlor trick where they have this pendulum that sometimes knocks down dominoes, but it's kind of silly. Okay. Yeah, if you guys have any questions about this topic, you can always email me at pgunnels@gmail.com, pgunnels@gmail.com. And if you want to support what I do, you do me a big fat favor and buy the perfect flat earther or ball earther's lotion made from food-grade plant oils. Hey, I have a new 30-second ad. Why don't I play it? That seems like I should play this ad because I haven't even watched this ad yet. Becca just made it for me. Hold for processing. I'm downloading it. It's downloading. It should be downloading now. But I want to show you my new Angel Paste ad. Videos. It's the very best flat earth show I've ever done. Let's see here. Where did it download to? I don't know where it downloaded to. Oops. I'm going to have to download it again. I'm just going to share this window. Here we go. Angel Paste video with voiceover. All right, perfect.
Patriots are fighting back against the chemical war being waged on our health and our skin. I created Angel Paste free of chemicals that dry out your skin and make you sick. Angel Paste is made of only organic, food-grade plant oils. Made for patriots, by a patriot. Go to angelpaste.com to transform the health of your skin.
Pretty cool, right? So get your Angel Paste. Use promo code Shapiro if you wish to pry $1 from my grasping hands. Now, on this topic of flat earth, I will debate literally anybody in the world, and I will do it without any notice. I'll do it on the spot. The only caveat is it needs to be somebody with a decent-sized audience. I need somebody who's going to help me reach more people with this topic. This topic is very important to me. So I really appreciate everybody watching. I also want to be very clear one more last time. All of you ball earthers,